Hi everyone. In this video, we'll be going over April's craft along project, Tissue Paper Flowers. If you're going with one of our kits, you would have received some tissue paper, a paper clip, and some string. And the only other additional thing you'll need for this craft is some scissors. And I have here the completed project so you can see what it looks like. These are so sweet, and if you make a bunch of them, you can put them on a wall, you can leave them on tables. I see people use these for events, different things. So a nice way to add some color leading into our spring. So our tissue paper today, you should have 3 different colors. A yellow, and in this case I have a blue. There should be 4 sheets of one color. You'll have 2 sheets of yellow, and typically this is done in green. You can see there's green here, but I want to show you how you can kind of change up how this looks. It doesn't have to be exactly this format. So I have 2 pieces of purple here. And in terms of size, there's no real standard size you need to use. In this case, we're using a 65 centimeter by 25 centimeter piece of tissue paper. Basically, I unfolded the full sheet and cut it in half. The really only guidelines for this, if you're making it yourself at home, is you want to have it longer than it is wide. And you can kind of experiment and see what length works for you. And when it comes to the yellow, you'll notice that it is half size. So I then took the yellow, cut it in half, had this size piece of paper, cut it in half again, and that gives me the yellow. So the first thing we're going to want to do with this is line up our tissue paper. So if you're using the kit from home, you want to lay down your green first. In my case, it can be the purple, but this will be your 2 sheets of tissue paper. I'm going to unfold this. I have 2 sheets here. I'm going to lay that out. And we're going to align each of these to one side. So the next, I'm going to grab my blue, which is the 4 pieces of tissue paper, and I'm going to line that up at the top here. And this project is pretty straightforward, but because we're using tissue paper and it's so delicate, it can be a little finicky, so don't be afraid to take your time. And next we're going to take our yellow and center this in the middle. Keep that flat, and then we're going to use the paper clip and we're going to pin this to the top. Feel free to use some more clips if you'd like to keep it a little more secure. The whole reason for this is we're going to flip it around, and if you need to, you can trim the bottom. You can see mine's a little uneven. It's a pretty forgiving project that way, but you just want to make sure that you're aligned on both sides and that you don't have a whole lot of overhang or underhang here on the side. So I'm just going to trim mine up, make it a little more flush, but a lot of this gets lost in the actual craft when you're making it, because if you look at the tissue paper here, I did this one in a bit of a hurry and it still looks pretty good, so you don't have to be too particular. Okay, now that we have our tissue paper all trimmed up, what we're going to do is going to start from the top here. We're going to flatten this out, and we're going to go to the other end of where our paper clip is here. Spread this out a little bit, and we're going to the bottom. And we're going to be doing an accordion fold. So now that you got that nice and straight, we're going to go up. Maybe you can do an inch, or you can do, more or less. It's really up to you how far up you'd like to go. I'm going to do about a ½ inch to an inch here, and fold that. And you want to create a really nice crease, because we're going to be separating these papers later and then re-putting them back together. So you want to make sure it's easy to get to. So nice crease. So that was just one fold, about a ½ inch to an inch up. You can see here mine's not perfectly even. I could trim that, but I'm going to leave it for this. So just so you can see that it's not a huge issue. So then what we're going to do is flip our project over. Now we're on the back. If you're doing the kit, this would be your green side. And we're going to repeat that same thing again. We're going to fold. This is where that kind of finicky part comes, but we're going to fold up the same distance and crease. And this is your accordion fold. So you're going to keep doing this. Flip back over. And you're always folding up. You want to try and keep it as even as you can. So keep going here. And you're going to keep doing this all the way to the top. Okay, so I completed my accordion fold. You can see they're all folded here. So I'm at the top here where the clip is. And if you look on the back, I do have a bit of a lip, and it's not the same size as my actual fold. So I could either fold this in, I'll take my clip off here, fold this in, or the other option you can do, that's what I'm going to do here, is I'm just going to trim this off to make sure it's all even. Let's give this a trim. And there we go. So now we have our nice little accordion folded tissue paper here. So with this, I'm going to give it one more final push. So careful not to tear it, just to give those nice creases. And now we're going to open up and separate our colors. Open this up, and I'm going to take my yellow out and try and keep those creases in there. So I got my yellow. I got my 4 layers of tissue paper here. Got those. And now I have my purple. So the reason we did that is we're going to add a little shape to our colors here. So I'm going to grab my yellow. This is how we're going to get to look a little more like a flower. So that's a little uneven there. You can see my yellow's a little bit of a lip there. So I'm going to quick trim so it's a little more even. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our yellow, our centerpiece, which again, you could use any color, and we're going to fold it in half. And what we're going to do now, so not on the folded edge, so you can see this is a folded edge and this is the open edge. So on the open edge, we're going to create some fringe. And by doing that, that's going to give us our center of our flower. So I'm just going to do cuts here. And I'm going to go about halfway down. So these are only a few centimeters across. Again, it's really up to you. You can kind of experiment with thicker ones or thinner ones. You could alternate the sizes. There's no real right or wrong here. I'm just going to flip that over. It might be a little easier to cut on this side. And let's take one more cut in there. Okay. So you can see I've created my fringe. So now when I open this up, just be careful, you might get a few stuck here. There we go. Where's my middle? There we go. You might want to stick together a little bit where you cut them. It's tricky to find the middle. There we go. So now here's my center. And next we're going to take our 4-piece fold here. This is our petals, and there should be 4 sheets here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold it in half. Match up our tops here. And what we're going to do is create a petal shape. So we're going to make almost like a U shape. So we're rounding off our edges. Now, if this is too thick for you to cut through, what you can actually do is unfold it and cut one side first and then fold it over and just copy. Thankfully, my scissors are sharp enough that I can cut through all of it. But just in case if you're having trouble getting all the way through, that's another way you can cut them. Just kind of check both sides. Now, should have a nice little rounded edge. There we go. Open that back up. So now we have those two, and for our last one, get nice and messy here. This would be either your green or whatever color you might have chosen for your 2 sheets. And this we're also going to fold in half. And we're doing a little bit of a different shape here. We're going to be doing an arced cut, so one side will be rounded. So to do that, usually I'll come down a little ways, say a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and then connect to the top. I'll show you there. Just to create a nice little arch. There you go. You can see like 1/2 an arch there. And that is our 3 pieces cut out. All right, with our 3 pieces cut out, we're going to realign our papers as we had before. So if you have the kit, that would be your green. In my case, it's the purple. This is the cutout with the arch that has 2 sheets. So I'm gonna move these aside. So this will be our base here. So we'll open that up again. And this is kind of the tricky part. So now we're going to take our petals, which is our 4 sheets, and we're going to realign where these bumps are. So you might have to fiddle with it a bit to figure out which side. Let's try this side. But they should kind of skip back into place there. They want to go back to how they were folded. There we go. So once you get your blue lined up with your purple there, and then next you're going to do this with your yellow. You're just going to keep fiddling with this until you get it lined up once again. Okay, I got mine lined up here. You can see when I fold it up, all my papers are lined up and they're all in their grooves they were in before. So you want to make sure you have it pretty lined up like we did before here, and that your yellow paper is in the middle. Perfect. So once you're happy with how that's lined up, what we're going to do, yeah, we're good. So we're going to take this and we're going to tie in the center. This is what our string is for. And you can also use some wire too. You have some options. So depending on how you want to use these flowers, you can use some string or you can use some flower. So to find the center, I'm actually going to fold this in half just so I have a good idea where it's going. And then you take your string, and I usually like to knot at the bottom. And that way when you're making your craft or when your flower is done, you don't actually see the knot, it's only in the back. This is good too if you want to connect it to something or tie it. So I gave you a bit of length there, just in case you did want to hang it up or connect it. Oops. I'm going to tie a knot here. Again, you might want to take your time, make sure you get in the middle. I'm going to tie it, and you don't want to pull too tight because again, it's tissue paper. It'll rip pretty easily. So usually what I like to do is I tied it, and you can see it's still a little loose here. So sometimes what I'll do is leave the one end here, and I'll just wrap it, and that way I know I'm getting it pretty secure that way. And I'll give it one more knot. Oops, again, keeping it on the bottom. And that's just going to give me a little bit tighter of a finish. Perfect. So now this still isn't looking very much like a flower. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to gently kind of fan these out. Just to space them open a little bit here. So you can kind of see the general shape of the flower there. And the first thing we're going to do is pull our layers upwards. And we're going to do this a layer at a time. So I'll show you with the yellow. So I'm going to try and separate the yellow. There should be two here. And I got the first one. And as I space this out, I'm going to gently pull this up and towards the middle. And it's okay if you rip a few here. It's a pretty delicate thing to do, but just take your time and gently coax that first layer of yellow up and towards the middle. Pull that up. You can see some are getting a little tangled. That's all right. Some of these might come off. Get that. So you can see as I'm pulling that up, we're starting to get our nice center. So I got my first layer up, and then I'm going to start on the next layer. And it's not a bad idea to do both sides. So I'll do my first top layers of yellow, and then I'll go back and do my second layer, and we'll continue on from there. All right, so we got our lovely center here, and you can just mess around and rearrange. There might be some you have to trim or do up, but we can always do that at the end as well. But we have a nice center. I have all the yellow pulled up. So now we're going to start on our petals. So we're going to grab one layer of our blue, and we're just going to gently pull that up. And what I like to do when I do one layer, I like to go back and kind of push underneath from here just to make sure we're getting as close to the edge as possible. That's one side, so I'm going to do the other side here now. Grab that first layer, try from this side. And we're going to do the same thing. Gently pull that up. So not looking great yet, but I promise as you keep doing the layers, you got to keep going around, and a layer at a time, you're going to fluff up your petals. Okay, I'm just on my last layer of blue. So you can see again, just very gently coaxing that up and separate from the layer behind it. So make sure you can pull this back a little bit if you want to. I'm just going all around, pulling that blue up. There you go. And now we can move on to our last layer, which is our two, could be green or in this case purple, layers here. And these, you're going to notice, aren't going to go up as far. You're basically just separating the two. And this is kind of acting like a nice little base. I'll do the other side here. Where's my other one? There we go. Fluff that up. So we're kind of left with something like this. Now this is where you can kind of fix it up a little bit to look a little more like a flower. So I'm going to flatten this back out a little bit. I'm going to push back down so we can kind of get our flower back. So you just want to rearrange. So at the sections, you can see this is where it separates. This is where you can kind of work at overlapping some of your tissue just to give a more cohesive look to your flower. Do that on the other side just to kind of overlap it so you don't notice a gap. So you can mess around with this a little bit to kind of get the shape you're looking for. But that is your lovely tissue paper flower. Thanks so much for watching this video. Stay tuned. We always have different crafts and activities going on our blog, libraryathome.org. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.